All right, today we're diving into something really cool called MemEvolve. The basic idea? It's all about taking an AI's memory from what's basically a digital filing cabinet and turning it into something that looks a lot more like a living, evolving brain. So let's get into it and see how they're pulling this off.
So, to really wrap our heads around this, let's start with a simple but pretty wild question. What if an AI's memory wasn't just some giant static database for storing facts, like a hard drive? What if it was more like, well, a brain? A brain that could literally rewire itself to get better at learning. That's the huge, radical idea we're going to unpack.
So to see why that idea is such a game changer, we've got to first understand the status quo. Let's talk about how most AI memory works right now, which is what we call static memory.
Okay, so here's the best way to think about it. On one hand, you've got the static filing cabinet. This is pretty much your standard AI memory today. It's awesome at rote memorization, just stuffing data in and pulling it back out. But then, on the other hand, you have the living brain. This isn't just about storing facts, it's about adaptive learning. It doesn't just remember stuff, it actually changes how it remembers based on what it's learning. Big difference.
And that's the core problem, right? The biggest issue is that this memory is static. It's stuck with a fixed, unchangeable way of learning. I mean, think about it. Would you use the exact same study method for calculus that you use for poetry? Of course not. It would be totally ineffective. Well, that's pretty much the box these AIs are stuck in.
So this brings us to the big solution. What if, instead of just learning stuff with its memory, an AI could actually learn how to learn more effectively? This whole idea is called meta-learning, and it's where things get really interesting.
And boom! This is exactly where MemEvolve enters the picture. It's what's called a meta-evolutionary framework. Now, what that really means is that it does two incredible things at the same time. Yeah, it evolves the agent's knowledge, what it knows. But here's the kicker. It also evolves the memory architecture itself, how it knows. It's not just filling the library with more books, it's redesigning the whole library.
So how on earth does it do that? Well, it uses this really clever process, basically a two-step loop. First, you've got the inner loop. This is where the AI is just doing its thing. It's out there trying to solve tasks, gaining experience, learning from the world. Then comes the outer loop. This is where the system itself steps back, takes a look at how the AI did and says, okay, how can we redesign the brain to do this better? And then it actually does it. And the way it redesigns the brain is by treating the architecture like a set of genes. They call it the memory genotype. And this genotype is made of 4 key parts, and all of them can be evolved. You've got encode, which is how it takes in new info. Store, which is, well, how it stores it. Retrieve, which is how it pulls that info back out. And manage, which is all about keeping the memory tidy over time, deciding what to keep and what to forget. Every single one of these pieces can be upgraded.
So what you end up with is an AI that transforms from just a skillful learner into a truly adaptive learner. See, a skillful learner is like that person who's really good at one thing, using one fixed strategy. But an adaptive learner, that's the MemEvolve AI. It completely changes its game plan depending on the subject. It just gets that the way you learn math is totally different from how you learn to analyze literature or even just browse the web.
All right, so we've talked about the what and the how, but what does this evolution of a digital brain actually look like? I mean, what's really changing? It's a fundamental shift, and it's pretty wild to see.
Okay, so at the very beginning, the AI memory starts out as this really simple, fixed pipeline. The best way to picture it is like a set of rigid pipes. Information can only go in one direction, through one predefined path. Sure, it works, but it's super inflexible. But after MemEvolve does its thing, it becomes something else entirely. It turns into a dynamic graph, and this is where you can really see the transformation. It's not a straight line anymore. It's a complex, interconnected web, kind of like a real neural network. It can grow new connections, cut off old ones that aren't working. It's constantly, actively optimizing itself.
And the researchers actually documented this whole evolutionary journey. It starts off with this really basic frozen design called Agent KB. Then, as it evolves, it turns into something more complex, like Riva. This version adds some sophisticated new tricks, like gating, which is basically a way to control the flow of information, like opening and closing little doors. And then finally, it reaches this stage called Cerebra, which is a full-blown dynamic graph memory system that's actively managing its own tangled web of connections. Just an incredible progression.
Okay, so right about now, some of you are probably thinking, hey, this just sounds like a fancy genetic algorithm. And you know what? You're not wrong. But you're not totally right either. This is a way smarter kind of evolution. And the key difference, the real secret sauce, is the mechanism. A traditional genetic algorithm, it's all about random mutation. It's basically just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Pure trial and error. But MemEvolve is different. It uses what's called a diagnose and design approach. It's not random at all. It's targeted. It's intelligent.
And there's a quote from the paper that just nails this perfectly. It goes, "If a traditional genetic algorithm is nature's random selection, MemEvolve is an expert engineer analyzing every failure to purposefully redesign the brain." I mean, that's it right there. It's the difference between blind luck and brilliant engineering.
Okay, so this all leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, it's probably the most mind-bending concept from this whole thing, the idea of a transplantable mind.
So here's the absolute breakthrough. Because this evolved memory architecture is all just modular software, it isn't stuck inside the AI that grew it. It becomes a pluggable organ, a self-contained unit. You can literally, and I mean literally, take this evolved brain out of one AI and just plug it into a totally different one.
And look, this isn't just some sci-fi theory. They actually did it. And the results? They're real, they're measurable, and they are impressive. In one of their key experiments, this brain transplant gave the recipient AI a massive 17.06% boost in performance. Just incredible.
So this chart breaks down exactly how they did it. What you're seeing here is that the researchers took a memory architecture that was evolved using a GPT-based model, and they transplanted it into a completely different AI called Kimi K2. And the result was immediate. The Kimi model instantly got that 17% smarter at its job, basically inheriting all of the advanced learning strategies from the brain it just received.
And just to be clear, this wasn't some lucky fluke. They proved that this whole brain transplant thing works across the board. We're talking different LLMs like GPT, Kimi, and DeepSeek, different kinds of agent setups, whether it's a single AI or a whole team of them working together, and on all sorts of different tasks, from web browsing to research. It is just unbelievably versatile.
So that leaves us with one final, pretty profound question to chew on. We started with AIs that could learn. Now with MemEvolve, we have AIs that can learn how to learn by literally redesigning their own minds. Which leads to the big question. When an AI can design its own brain, what in the world does it learn next?